Well, I'll be goddamn. It's the Poke Mitchell Podcast TV. Breakdown to breakdown. Hey, you know, that's something that me and one of my good friends, man, Mr. BoPeep, came up with. And it'll be somewhere down the line, man. You know that me and BoPeep will be coming with a show that we named Breakdown to Breakdown. Well, we'll be breaking down all kind of things, terminologies, phrases, different things, you know, in your life that people go through. And I'm gonna do an official one starting now. So welcome to the Poke Mitchell Podcast. Breakdown to Breakdown. Yeah, I was having a conversation with one of my elders, and it was a very educational conversation, man. You can look at it like a history class. It was a history class for me. You know, I remember being in history class. I hated history class because the history class that I was involved in, that I was a part of, it always seemed like they wanted you to give the white folk an A every time they did something, whether it was good or bad. You get an A if you answer the question correctly. And so it was always that I always felt that we didn't never learn anything when it came to Black history. I mean, other than that we were slaves, we were once slaves. And, you know, we go through so much. You know, we go through so much, man. You know, I've been a part of a podcast that I feel like reminds me of the conversation that I had with one of my elders. And I love being a part of that podcast. And the narrator, Big Bub, good dude, man. A great leader. We need more like him. I remember on one of the podcasts that Under the Groove had was how a lot of our brothers be dealing with PTSD, and some of us never coming out of it because we never received the proper help on it. And I wanted to have a conversation with my elder. You know, I needed some education from back when. I want to give a special shout out to Bub and Under the Groove, man. Man, you know, your podcast has inspired me in so many ways, man. You know, I catch myself thinking about, you know, some of the conversations that we had at work. And I haven't been able to do, the podcasts that I've been wanting to do. But I got something. I got something here, man. I got something educational, man. And I really need you guys to listen and understand, man. Look at it like a Black history class. Something that'll give you some knowledge. It may point you toward a solution. God is good, y'all. Let's go.
There was never no therapy for us. you know what I'm saying. So therapy that was necessary for all people to go through trauma. You have to have some kind of therapy to help you come through it, come out of it, because you're in a mental state that's so bad, and the mental state that got you there, it holds you there. You're captive in it, and you're caught up in this whole mental thing, and that's what it is. It's a mental slavery that resulted from the physical slavery that we used to have, and as a result, we never had, as a people, we came up and we had the house Negroes and the field Negroes, and we've separated, and we've continued that. House Negroes being house Negroes and field Negroes being field Negroes, using the term Negro loosely. But I'm just saying, it's just a reality, my brother. And that's the deal. We come at it all right. We went through from slavery. They said we were free, and for 12 years we were. But after that 12 years, the election in 1872, they kind of, was it 1876, they kind of knocked it down. After that, we kind of, Rutherford Hayes became president, and that was it. He sold it out. The slavery, carpetbaggers was allowed to run out and run through the South and wreak havoc, and then they were able to come and reap it all back. And I'm talking that 1876 election turned it around. So
12 years. That's a decade, man. Like you could accomplish a lot.
And we did it. You got to look at the fact that we came from slavery to being senators and congressmen and all within that period. Now look at this now, from 1865. We got to look at that from at the end of the Civil War, 1865, and then to the election of 1876. All right, so that's 11. Like I said, 11 because the election, he took office in the 77. So that's the 12-year period. I'm saying. So when we look at that, and that was real freedom for us. But in that election, he made a deal with the Southerners to get all the Northerners out of the South, and allowing them to take over their situation again. And that's when they went and came back with segregation again. They came back, Ku Klux Klan was born, and that whole issue of putting us into something new, the Jim Crow thing. And that was the beginning of Jim Crow, right after that period, because that was a period when the South was able to rise again. They was able to get all the Northern guys out, and they took over and became, and they changed the laws, and that's when segregation was real deep then. They was able to pull it off, which means, and it culminated about 30 years later or 25 years later in a Supreme Court decision called Plessy v. Ferguson, which was in 1896. So when it culminated there, that's when separate but equal was what the word out of that Supreme Court was. Everything was cool, but we had to be equal. We were equal as long as it was separate. When it was never equal, and it was definitely separate. So
I look at the Army. Where was the Army in this? Like, okay, where was the power? The power of the Army, to okay, now the blacks were free, to back up, leave them alone. I mean, they was even though the blacks were free, they were still being done a certain way that they would never let people be done in today. In the way that they did, like dropping bombs. I mean, you know what I'm saying, on Black Wall Street. I mean, it's crazy, man.
Okay, now we gotta look at this. Now we gotta spread that out, because when we talk about Black Wall Street, see, that's in another century. See, I was still in back in the 1800s, to go back that far to say, as we reached into the 1900s, I was at 1896.
Right.
Is where I was at. So I'm saying, now we're just moving into 1896. Now 4 years later, we're in the 1900s. So what you talking about with the bombing, that was in 1921. So that's 21 years later. Let's say about 25 years later, and we put it into perspective. So by the time we got to separate but equal, that's when we had, all right, they said separate but equal, and at the turn of the century. So 21 years later, they see that we were separate, and we did have something that was more than equal. We built something better than them. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So they went along with separate but equal, and we built something better than that. They got so mad at what we built that they turned around and used the bogus excuse of a white woman being raped, and then turned around and came in and just took over everybody, burnt everybody's place up, the businesses, and shot all the people up.
What was some of the things that was better? What was some of the things that was better than what they do?
Just the whole notion that we built our own. Remember now, it was segregated. You couldn't, you didn't. So this was a black town that had everything that a white town had, but it was all black people. And what they had was a better establishment. They built it because they remember now they doing all the building and all the work that does that, so they could build for themselves like they was building for the masters. Sure they could, and they did when they had their own, because their banks wouldn't give them. They had their own banks. They had, that's what I'm saying. They had their own institutions, their own everything, and they were able to suffice. But when they got alone and did that, they turned around and attacked them, and once again being envious. Oh no, look at them. First, they don't want you to have nothing, but they didn't want you to have what they wanted. But then when you build your own, then they didn't want you to have that. And that's and that was at a time when the Ku Klux Klan, all that early 1920s, see, that was a rise because World War One had just ended. So you're talking 3 years after World War One ended when that happened. Okay, you talking about in World War, they were sending black soldiers over to Germany to get killed in World War One. And get the worst jobs in the military because that's what they was doing. Remember now, both World Wars, the army was segregated, which meant white troops and black troops really couldn't, or not until Eisenhower was using the Tuskegee Airmen to save them, to be able to go, in the World War II, they was able to, you're talking 1945, but back then in 1914 to 1918, black servicemen, there was no equality in that. It was always what it's been. It's been segregation. And it was segregation in segregation. They didn't end segregation in the army until 1948, and that happened when those same Tuskegee Airmen refused to leave the officers' corps because they had just fought and beat Germany. They know that they beat Germany. They was the ones that brought Hitler down. They went after the German Air Force and knocked it out. They went on those missions to stop the bombers from being able to stop the German fighters from being able to, protect the linemen. They were able to get in and bomb all the factories and do the things they did to win the war. That's what won the war. So when them brothers came back, they wasn't trying to hear them talk about no segregation, that you can't let me in here and I got to sit in the back. I ain't doing none of that. I just bombed Hitler and took them down. So they got arrested. And in the court martial, they turned around and dismissed it all. So at the end of that, President Truman said, "Well, damn, this is a disgrace." So that man was decent enough to say, "Well, let me desegregate the army." So he desegregated the army in 1948. Howard Truman, a moderate white man from Kansas,
right,
who used to be a judge, and at least had some kind of ability of understanding that there's no way you can have these brothers that fought valiantly and with valor, went over and just beat and whip Hitler like Jesse Owens. See, Hitler got started off with Jesse Owens and ended with the Tuskegee Airmen. So he got a combo. They started there with Jesse Owens. Jesse Owens beat him on the field, and he was humiliated from him going out because they was a master race and nobody can beat him. And then Jesse Owens just went out there and just showed black, just went and just ate it all up. And Hitler wouldn't come out. He wouldn't even come out. He was so embarrassed because he was bragging about what the master race was going to do. And just Jesse Owens did that by himself in 1936. Then you turn around, like I said, in 1945, and you had them straighten up and fly right. Them brothers, the Tuskegee Airmen, they turned around and made it so that America could get in there and get in on Hitler. And they did. They went out there and never lost a plane in a mission. They lost a plane that wasn't in a mission training, but they, in terms of on a mission against the German Luftwaffe, which is the baddest thing they thought they ever had. Once again, white supremacy at its best. The brothers went over there and took them down. And I'm saying they had to deal with that. And I add insult to injury. the white man Pete Hegseth, the current Secretary of Defense, they tried to pull off, and I mean get rid of the they had a award that they gave to them. They tried to take the award down. That was in honor of the Tuskegee Airmen.